In this podcast, I'm going to show you how to scan something on the scanner and get it into the computer and then do a little bit of image editing. Instead of scanning a regular picture or drawing, I'm going to scan a bit of this shell because I really like the blue that's in here and the white, and we'll use this to build a background for our animated film. First off, make sure that your scanner is connected to the computer you're working on, especially if you're working in a computer lab, because sometimes if you have two computers next to one another, it's hard to tell which one it's connected to. Next, turn on your scanner and open up the lid to expose the scanning bed. If you're scanning a photograph, you can just set it down on the scanning bed. If you're scanning a 3D object such as this, I'm going to have to hold on to that. Launch your scanning software. In my case, it's HP Scan. If you're in the computer lab, it may be Epson Scan or Nikon Scan. Check the brand on your scanner and then look for the software that would run it. Once the scanning software launches, you want to click Scan or Preview depending on your software. In my case, it says Scan. And I'm going to be looking at pictures. Once your preview shot is on your scanning software, you can grab the hashed lines and crop the shot, as you see me doing here. I just really want a little bit of this blue area here in the shot, so I'm going to crop this down pretty small. Additionally, you can adjust your image here in the scanner or in the scan software. I'm going to click on my Show Adjust panel. On your software it may be a little bit different, but ostensibly it'll give you options to size your scan, to change the color. My scan is scaled at 100% or 573 by 657 pixels at 200 pixels per inch. And if I click on the triangle, you can see I can expand from 72 pixels per inch, which is screen resolution, all the way up to 19,000 pixels per inch. Your scan software options may vary depending on the software. I'm going to click on exposure, and you can see the results. I can change my exposure to darken the highlights. I'm going to brighten them just a bit and darken the shadows just a bit to increase my contrast. I'm going to switch to color and increase my saturation and increase the intensity of my hue, and then shift my hue into a blue. Something like that, I think. Maybe back off on the intensity just a nudge to pick up some whites in this area here. Once you're happy with that, you can close that, and then finally you can save your scan in some fashion or another. For my software, I just click on the Save button, and you can see when I roll over that it says Saved Scanned Images to File. So I'm going to click Save, and then save my image as shell to the desktop. And I'm going to, for my format, I'm going to leave it as a JPEG, and I'm going to pump it all the way up to best quality and click Save. If I want to go to Photoshop and edit this, I can save it as a JPEG, but I can also save it as a PNG file format. We'll save it as JPEG, click Save, and then here you can see my image is saved to a file. And it's ready for import to whatever software. Now that I have my image, I'm going to hold down the Control key on my Mac or right-click on the right-click on my image, and then that'll give me my open with, and I'm going to open this image with Adobe Photoshop CS5 to edit it a little bit. The first thing I want to do in order to be able to paste or copy or edit bits of this first layer is I'm going to go to my Layers palette once in Photoshop, and I'm going to double click on the layer called Background because you can see that layer is locked. So I'm going to double click on that, which will give me a dialog to name that something else. We'll just call it BKGD for background. Leave our opacity up to 100% and click OK. And you can see that now that becomes an editable layer so that I can actually do things in this layer in Photoshop. To just run through the tools quickly, you'll note that there's dividing lines in the toolbox, one here below my selection tools, one here below my painting, drawing, and editing tools, one here below my pen and type and so forth tools, and then one here below my hand and 3D and color palette tools and so on. Any tool you'd roll over and leave your cursor there will give you your yellow tooltip, which will tell you what the name of that tool is, and it'll also give you, notice with the move tool, it'll also give you its quick key command, which means that if I click on another tool, and for example, to get the move tool, type a V, immediately my tool will change. Also, any tool I have selected has with it properties, special tool properties that show up in the upper palette here. So when I click on my selection tool, my move tool, I can auto-select, I can show my transform controls, I can use alignment. If I grab more than one thing, I can align them top, through the center, bottom, flush left, through the center vertically, or flush right vertically, align only the tops, only the middles, only the bottoms, and so on. So I have options like that. The first thing I'm going to do is grab my eyedropper tool, and if you pay attention to the color palettes down here, my color choices for foreground and background color, and in Photoshop this is a little different than, say, other programs like Flash that are actually giving you colors for outline and fill. This is foreground and background. If I want to change back to defaults, I can simply click here, which will bring me back to black as foreground, white as background, and if I click this, I can switch my foreground and background colors. And you can see as I do that, here in the color palette, my palettes switch, so that I can also use sliders to adjust any color I'm using, any color I choose, and always revert back clicking that. I'm going to click on my eyedropper and select a new foreground color, and I think we'll select one of these blues here. You can see how it gives me a good, maybe that one, a little bit of a steely blue. And then for my background color, let's see, I'm going to switch foreground and background, and for background I'm going to select one of these whites that isn't completely white, that's kind of a little on the bluish side, that one. So that I don't get pure whites, but I'm getting whites within the context of this color palette. Now I'm going to click my Move tool, and we're going to do some changing to the image itself if you wanted to edit your image. So we'll go up to Image, and if my image, for example, was flipped, say 180 degrees, I can rotate it, and it will flip back upside down. I'll Command Z or undo that. I can also adjust color automatically by clicking Auto Color, which will give me an auto tone and auto contrast. You can try those and see how they do. That one sort of bleaches mine out, takes a bit of the blue out of it. I'm going to undo that to leave a little bit more contrast in there. I can go to Image Adjustments and then adjust things specifically like brightness, contrast. If I bring up my brightness contrast palette, I have sliders that can brighten or increase the contrast in my image. Okay, that's a bit, or flatten out the contrast into grays. I'm going to cancel because I don't really need any of that. I'm going to go to Image Adjustments, Exposure. If I've over or underexposed my image, I can pump it up a little bit more or less exposure if I've over or underexposed it. or an offset between the two if I want to create just a bit more contrast in there. And I can correct gamma, which sort of fills in the gaps there. Okay, I don't really need any of those things. I'm going to go to adjust hue saturation, where I can colorize an image. Let's say I wanted to do a tonal sort of a thing. I can click colorize, and then my image is ostensibly now turned into sort of a monotone image. I'm going to increase my saturation so I get more of the actual color, and then I can pick a variety of hues for my image. Now you'll see that it really is kind of a monotone, a single hue and white that I'm getting out of this. I can do a duotone, but that's a filter, and that's a little bit different in Photoshop. Okay, I'm going to cancel that because I don't really need that either. And I can also change my image size or canvas size. Canvas size changes the size of the actual image itself, or let's say the paper the image would be printed on, without changing the picture. Okay, so if I wanted to increase my canvas let's say I'll double my canvas. So I'm at 2.865. Double that will be about 5.7, 5.77. Let's do that. Something like that, and click OK. And you can see, I'm going to zoom down with my magnifying glass. Okay, you can see what it's done is made my width double while leaving my height and leaving my image intact. So ostensibly I've added, this is why it's called the canvas tool, I've added more canvas around the edges of my image. I'm going to Command Z. All right, go back to image size this time. Under image size, let's change the width of our image again, 5.77. It's not quite double, but that's all right. Okay, and you can see what it's actually done. Let's undo that. Go again to image size. Because these two are tied together, ostensibly it simply doubled the size of my image, approximately. If I click off of there, okay, you can see that it's going to ostensibly double the size of my image. Okay, and that's what it did. So it didn't add pixels. If I go back to image size, I'm at 200. It didn't add pixels. It just doubled them up, or made every pixel, it sort of doubled the size of that pixel, or repeated it, so that the image is larger, but it's not like I added information, because there's no more information than there was before. In fact, you can tell the image has gotten just a touch blurry. Okay, so I'm going to cancel and undo that. So these are some basic sort of adjustments you can make on your image. A couple others that might be useful would be cropping. If I click on the crop tool, okay, you can see the tool tip for that, or C is its quick key command. Let's zoom up a little bit and then grab our crop tool. Okay, let's say I just really wanted a bit of this blue here. I can crop just to that bit of the image, and a carriage return will engage the crop, or finalize the crop. Okay, and then I can go back and save my image. If I want this image for the web, I can certainly save my image by clicking Save As, and save it as whatever I want, a PSD, a Photoshop file, or whatever is probably best for now. But I can also save for web and devices. Okay, now 200 pixels per inch is large for a web file, but just to give you an idea, here's my Save for Web and Devices dialog. What this is doing is it's giving me a way to optimize my image for web design. So it's going to make my image much smaller. It's going to compress it. In this case, it's going to use JPEG as the optimization format. It's going to use a level of high compression with a quality of 60 and so on, optimizing this for the web. If I click 2 up, okay, I can see my original, which is 237K, and I can see my optimized image, which is about 10% of that, or 26.69K, okay, which is the file size. So this is pretty small. We've thrown out a lot of empty space, a lot of information, and lost just a little bit of tone. So here, if I wanted to get my quality up a little and see what that would change, when I put my quality up from 69 to 79, I've nearly doubled my file size up to 46K. That's still pretty small. And I haven't changed the image quality all that much. When I back it down, I actually think it looks a little bit better down lower than it does up higher, and I'm down to 14K now. If I'm going to take that hit in quality, I think I'll take it for optimizing my file size just a bit more, because I have lost my deep blues, I've lost my deepest tones and values here, and if I'm going to take that kind of a quality hit, then I want some big file size savings. Okay, and then I click Save, and it would save for me a JPEG image that's a copy of my original file. So I'll have two files now, my original plus an optimized JPEG. So that's a little bit about, I'm going to cancel because I don't need to do that. So that's a little bit about how to use Photoshop to optimize and scan in and edit some of your, or scan in and edit some of your images for your film. The last thing I want to do here in Photoshop is do a little bit of painting to show you, if you want to paint your backgrounds, how you can do that also in Photoshop. I'm going to leave this file open so that I can use it as sort of a palette. I'm going to go to File, New, and open a new file that'll be the size for HDTV, and click OK with a white background. All right, so here's my background file. I'm going to reduce that a bit so that we can see that, and I'm going to tear off my shell file so that I can use that as a palette. And what I mean by use that as a palette is I really like the mixture of colors I have in this file, so I'm going to use it to pick my colors, and that way my final image will come out with colors such as that. First thing, double click on my background to turn that into layer 0, making that an editable layer. Next, I have these guides on here, so I'm going to go to View and turn off my extras so that I don't see those. I'm going to grab my brush from my brush tools. I have brush, pencil, and so on. I'm going to grab my brush tool and look at which brush I've got here. Take an airbrush and make that a bit bigger. Keep my hardness down. Opacity 34, maybe 23%. And the first thing I'm going to do is pick a good background color, or a good kind of middle range blue. Let's see what we can get here for a general sort of sky color, something in the middle. That's a bit much. Maybe what I'll do is expand this so that I can see it a little bit better. And bring that down here, and then get my eyedropper. And I'm looking for a good general background blue for the sky. That's not bad. Maybe that one. Something a bit, just a touch on the darker side. Yeah, something like that. So I'll go up to Edit, Fill, and fill with my foreground color that you can see here in the color palette. Blend mode normal and opacity 100%. Whoops. I'm going to make sure I click in my untitled file and then fill. I just filled the wrong file. And click OK. And that gives me kind of a base blue. It's really flat, but we'll go ahead and darken up the bottom and lighten up the top. I'm going to flip my colors so I get my darker color in the background, and then grab my brush. And let's see what I've got for my airbrush here. That's not bad. If I touch lightly, I can paint in a little bit. You can see that I'm darkening it ever so slightly. I just want to touch in the background just a little bit. A little bit less even there and here. And just give me sort of a good dark bottom. Make a couple of passes with my pen tool, my brush rather, on my digital pen. Touch that up. And that gives me kind of a general good sort of gradient sky. I typically don't use the gradient tool because I don't really like the computational evenness it gives me. Now that I've got that, I'll go and switch colors, and let's pick a good light color. We need a good sort of lightish, hazy color. Something maybe, that might be too much, but let's try that. Come back here, and I'm going to change my brush up a little bit, make it a little bit bigger so that I can not have the same brush every time. That's kind of nice. So we'll come in and touch that up. Maybe just touch up a bit here to get a good background. And then I'm going to reduce this quite a bit, down to about 102 pixels, back off the opacity slightly, and then we'll paint in some clouds. Maybe go a bit bigger. Excuse me. In this fashion, I can kind of build this up. Now that I have my background sort of painted in, I'm going to create what's called a work path and then maybe lay in some buildings here. So I'll go to my pen tool and just begin to sketch in a work path out of Bezier curves. So we'll put in a few buildings or something in the background here, sort of mix it up a bit. Something like that, and then I'll bring this shape down to here to fill in the background. Now that I have my work path, and you'll note it down here under paths, I have layers in my palette, and I also have paths. Now that I have my work path, I'm going to change my foreground color and pick out a good color for these buildings. I think what we'll do is let's see if we can't find a color in here that maybe I can utilize, something a bit on the grayer side. I'll pick this up and see if there isn't something in the background that I can use that's kind of subtle, but a touch on the grayer side. Kind of darker blue stuff. That's not bad. We'll try that. Let's get this out of the way, come back into my foreground image. Now, what I have to do is select my work path, just like I would select a layer. go to Paths, select my work path, then click on, let's bring this palette over this way. All right, so then I click on the right-hand expanded menu and go to Fill Path, and I want to fill with the foreground color. We're going to start with 100% opacity. Okay, that's not too bad. So there's my fill. Then I'm going to get rid of my path, delete my work path, and it leaves just my buildings. I'm going to close the Paths palette, go back to my layer, and you can see now that here are my buildings sort of sitting as in the foreground, my clouds and so on. And so I've begun to put together kind of an image here. I can save this image and then take and import it into Flash or Toon Boom or wherever I'd want to go. I won't clog up this podcast any longer because I think you get the idea that you can use Photoshop to do sort of painted backgrounds that you could then bring into your movie and animate either in Toon Boom or drop them in and animate cameras through them or around them in Toon Boom.